Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Bet the Birds with Eliot Shorr-Parks. I'm Maniac Malloy. Wow, Eliot, last week.
Not great.
Tough one.
Yeah. Talking about my loss, I assume, right? I mean, me.
Talking about your loss.
My loss, exactly. Not the Eagles' loss, my loss.
Talking about both. Talking about both. It was a tough loss all around for everybody, myself included. You talked me into it. Of course, at the last minute, I flip-flopped, and I went with the Birds. We took an L.
Yes.
But you know what? You're only as good as your last winning bet. And you know what that means. It's the Cowboys. It's Cowboys week again, this time down in Dallas. The Eagles are again going to be underdogs on the road in Dallas, a place we do not play very well. The spread is, I believe, -3.5 right now. Eliot, I got to ask you, are you going to bet the Birds this weekend, and how are you going to bet them?
So being down at the NovaCare this week, being in the locker room on Wednesday, I will say this is a very motivated Eagles team. You can tell that what happened to them last week, I don't want to call it a wake-up call, but I think they're very anxious to go out there on Sunday night in Dallas and put a better game together, put better things on film, and remind people why prior to that game against San Francisco, they were considered the best team in the NFL. And I think they will come out and play much better in Dallas than they did against San Francisco. But I am not picking them to win this game. I'm not picking them to even cover. I think this is going to be a pretty tough spot for the Eagles. Dallas is one of the best teams in the league at home. Their offense is unstoppable at home. They haven't scored under 30 points a single time. They've been over 38, I believe, in every other home game that they've played. Now, their home schedule's not been difficult, and that is part of it. But for an Eagles team that's having defensive trouble, for an Eagles team that might not have Darius Slay, in an Eagles team where the defense has really 2 weeks in a row been shredded, I don't think Dallas is going to have trouble moving the ball on this team. And I think it's going to be tough for the Eagles offense to outscore them. I've been at too many blowouts in Dallas for me to pick anything else. So I'm going to pick the Cowboys to win this game. The hook is a little tempting. If you want to like morally go for the Eagles there, maybe it's a 3-point game. But my pick for now would be the Cowboys.
I tend to agree with you this week for sure. I think we're back on the same page.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be just too tough of a spot yet again. 10 days off. Dak has looked unbelievable. CeeDee Lamb, we didn't have an answer for him the first time around. I don't think that they figure that out again. I think I'm going to lay the 3 points and take the Cowboys this week.
I will say this about CeeDee Lamb. So a lot of people are going to bet the over on CeeDee Lamb this week. And it probably is a smart bet. CeeDee's probably going to have a big game. But last time they played the Cowboys, they did not have Bradley Roby. They had Eli Ricks on him. They had Sidney Brown on him. They did not have a natural kind of answer for him. Bradley Roby is going, I mean, CeeDee Lamb's one of the best slot receivers in the NFL, one of the best receivers in the NFL, period. But the fact he lines up inside so much, he will be lined up on Roby quite a bit. And Roby is a better matchup for him than Eli Ricks or Sidney Brown were. So I think there's a possibility that if the Eagles win this game, if we're talking next week and the Eagles have shocked the world and they've won the game, it'll be because they have a better plan for CeeDee Lamb this time. And I think Bradley Roby's a big part of it. So bet the over on CeeDee Lamb, but I think it could be close because they have a better player available to try to cover him than they did the first time.
How worried really should we be right now as Eagles fans, as Eagles bettors, as people that maybe hold that future wager ticket on a NFC championship or maybe a Super Bowl? Are you shook right now?
I mean, I wouldn't say the sky is falling, but I would say the dark clouds are starting to gather. I mean, that was a bad performance. Now, I will say a few days out, like they were only down 8 with 5 minutes to go in the third. If they were in that game for the majority of it, they dominated that first quarter. I'm not ready to sit here and say that the Niners are a better team than the Eagles. The Eagles have been a better team than them this year. They were a better team than them last year. One day or really 3 quarters is not going to sway my opinion on an entire team in an entire season. Bad loss, ugly loss. The Niners are very good. I was wrong about how good the Niners are. But if you're someone that thought the Eagles were going to win the Super Bowl before, they could still have home field advantage. They, I think, are still better than the Niners. And next time they played, I will pick the Eagles to beat the Niners. So I do not believe all hope is lost. That being said, if they go to Dallas and get absolutely boat race like they did, 42-19 like San Francisco, then yeah, things are going to look rough because the two best teams that are on your way to the Super Bowl will have just beat you, but also the team will have not been playing very well. So Sunday is a massive game. I've covered a lot of Eagles games. I can't think of many regular season games that were bigger than this one. The Chiefs game was anticipated. The Niners game was really anticipated. In terms of both pressure, opponent, expectation, prime time, all those things, man, Sunday is a really big game.
Yeah, they say you want to play your best football in December if you plan on winning in January. Yeah. They better get to it right away here. I got to just say something to you, and I really want your take on it.
Right.
Hurts.
Yeah.
I think I took it for over 60 yards rushing. I thought they maybe were going to let him loose. I thought that, maybe he was, finally healthy, and kind of trending towards getting back to the Jalen Hurts that we saw last year. I mean, I rewatched the Super Bowl the day that they played Kansas City, and his burst, his speed. I know I've heard all you said about him being at practice. Is he really 100% healthy? Like, I really just tend to believe that there's something wrong with Hurts.
Yeah, so I think he ran the ball well against Buffalo. I think there have been a lot of plays this year where he's looked like the guy from last year. But I think the Eagles, are not running him the same way. They're not calling as many design runs. So that's going to impact his ability to impact the game as a runner, but also from a gambling perspective to hit the over. I think defenses are playing them differently, and that's limiting his ability to run the ball as well. So I think there's a lot of factors here as to why he's not been impactful as a runner. Now, against Dallas, you're inside. It's a dome. It's not a weather game. It's a fast surface. Like, maybe we see him return to the guy that he was last year. But, I mean, he's clearly dealing with something. You look at how he's looked at a runner at times. He doesn't look as explosive. Again, I see him at the NovaCare on the practice field. When he walks to his press conference, like, he doesn't look injured. He's not limping. He's not wearing ice on his knee, like any of that stuff. But I think at this point, it's week 14. How many weeks have we sat here and said, take the over on Jalen? This is the week. It hasn't come. So maybe it'll come this week. Look, if I'm going to be wrong, I'll be wrong about probably everything. But Jalen as a runner just doesn't seem like it's going to happen this year.
Yeah. Speaking about running the football, we had those guys outside with the sign greeting Sirianni at 7:30 in the morning, running the ball. I mean, they're right. We needed, I mean, at one point in time, you couldn't run the ball. You had to throw in that 49ers game. But what is going on with running the football? Are we going to see maybe a conceded effort to try to, a concentrated effort to try to run the football against the Dallas Cowboys?
Yeah, I think what they meant on the sign was run the ball better, right? Like, they are not a good running team right now. They're not. Like, they're averaging, I think, about 3.7 yards per carry. If you look at some more recent games, they're near the bottom of the league in yards per carry. They have not been an efficient running team this year. Now, last year, I think they were around 13th in the league, so they weren't near the top, but they were in a lot of obvious running situations, killing clock, those kind of things. The concern with the running game this year has been when they've had to run it. Like, early on against the Niners, they came out 9 design runs. They averaged 1.5 yards a carry or something like that. Games at the end of the year this year where they've tried to, milk away the clock, haven't been able to do it really since Tampa Bay. So I do think they should run it more, but the main problem is they have not been able to run the ball at a high level when they have tried. So why is that? I think it's a couple things. One, I think the teams are playing them differently, and that's making it harder to run. Two, I think the offensive line communication has not been great. That's a big part of the running game. Cam Jurgens missed part of the year, so they've had to kind of integrate him back into the line. But I also think their running backs are not as good as they were last year. Like, Miles Sanders is struggling in Carolina, but we saw Miles Sanders in this offense could be an extremely efficient / great running back. DeAndre Swift has had his moments. He looks more explosive at times than Miles Sanders does, but I don't believe he's as good at consistently making the right read as Miles Sanders. That's what you heard about him in Detroit, that he wasn't a great between the tackles runner. So I think it's a number of things. But again, I hate to keep bringing this up, but it is week 14. At a certain point, you are what you are. Now, the season will come down to playing a few games in January, hopefully 4 games, or I guess ideally, hopefully 3 games. But ultimately, they have proven to be a team this year that cannot run the ball, which is shocking when you consider how good their offensive line is.
In terms of the matchups this weekend, how does that favor the over or the under bettors? What do we taking in terms of a 51.5 total? I tend to believe that the Eagles defense is going to really struggle to slow down Dak and the Cowboys offense. And I think that the Eagles should be able to score as well. Are we taking the over or are we taking the under this weekend?
So the 51's a little low. I'm surprised by that. I thought, it would be higher than that. So maybe that's good news for the Eagles. Maybe Vegas thinks they're going to slow the Cowboys down a little. I mean, look, the Cowboys could put up 40 points by themselves. Like they're that type of team in Dallas, and Dak is that type of quarterback when he plays in AT&T Stadium. I think really any team against the Cowboys is going to struggle in Dallas, but especially an Eagles team that is really struggling right now. So I would take the over. I do think the Eagles will put up points. Dallas Goedert's returning this week. I think that'll help in the running game. I think that'll help in the passing game. And I think that, they'll come out and Jalen will come out extremely motivated and want to play well in such a big game. So I would take the over. I think there'll be plenty of points in this game. I just unfortunately think the Cowboys are going to end up with more of those points.
All right, give me a touchdown scorer for the Cowboys.
Well, CeeDee Lamb's the obvious one, right? But the other one I would go with is Jake Ferguson. Their tight end. He has 5 so far this year. The Eagles struggle to cover tight ends. Zach Cunningham should be back, which might help. But I think he's someone that in the red zone over the middle of the field could be an issue for this Eagles team. So for the Cowboys, anytime touchdown score, I would probably take Jake Ferguson. On the Eagles, I'll go Devontae. He's been playing really well recently. He's played well before in Dallas. He's a big-time player in big-time games, and that's what this is. So I would go Devontae on the Eagles side for an anytime touchdown score.
Well, if they tackle any way like they did against the 49ers, Ferguson, he'll be getting a lot of yards after the catch. I really like that bet. That's my best bet of Sunday is a Jake Ferguson anytime touchdown. You should be able to get some pretty good juice on that. Eliot, it saddens me to say it, but we're on the same side of things this week. We're going to lay the points. We're going to take the Cowboys. This is another edition of Bet the Birds in the books. Safe flight out to Austin or Texas, wherever the heck you're going.
And I'll say this. I've picked the Eagles to lose on this pod twice, and they're 2-0 in those games. So maybe this is good news that I'm picking against them.
Maybe it is good news for the Eagles bettors out there.
Yeah.
So we'll see if that trend continues. Safe travels to and fro from Dallas, and we'll see you again next week on Bet the Birds, Eliot.
Sounds good. Talk to you later.